The modern Olympic Games were conceived as a refuge of peace and fraternity.
Today, one observer gave them a new name, the Bloody Olympics.
The Munich attack in 1972 changed everything.
Officials also appeared to have ignored one of 26 possible terror scenarios.
The German government says it was convinced that this would have meant certain death for the Israelis.
On September 5, 1972, in Munich, West Germany, Black September guerrillas tragically kidnapped and murdered 9 Israeli athletes, as well as 2 coaches, due to ongoing disputes between Israel and Palestine. As a result, many attempts for revenge took place, which only furthered the conflict. Triumphantly, in recent years, conflicts have reduced in the Middle East because of agreements related to land, including the Treaty of 1979, and airport security has upgraded, preventing numerous tragedies from occurring.
It all began in the Middle East, between Israel and its neighboring Arab countries like Palestine. Israel became a country in 1947 thanks to the United Nations. One of the first tragedies that occurred was the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, which was Israel against its neighbors like Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Israel showed great strength and power and managed to push back the enemies. Through the 1949 armistice agreements, Israel successfully received over 50% more land than before. Another tragedy was the 1967 Six-Day War. This war was a repeat of the Arab-Israeli War with most of the same opponents and the same outcome. Winning the war in 6 days, Israelis remember that day as a triumphant moment for their small country. Back in 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization, or the PLO, was created. This group used to be known as peaceful, but now is recognized for associating with terrorism and extremism. After the Six-Day War, the PLO's dangerous activities had escalated. The PLO was located in Jordan and was constantly being attacked by Israel. King Hussein of Jordan had decided to take action because he did not want his country to have to deal with Israel's attacks. In 1970, King Hussein decided to get rid of the Palestinians and relocate them to refugee camps in other Arab countries. That did not stop the Palestinians, and they formed a terrorist group known as Black September, this time with one goal in mind: to take revenge on Israel and Jordan. Israel was competing in the 1972 Olympics along with many other countries. Palestine attempted to have a team come and compete in the Games of Peace and Joy by sending a letter to the Olympic Committee twice, but they never got a response. In 1971, at a training camp south of Beirut, Lebanon, 50 men competed for a place in a mission, but they all had no information about the mission whatsoever. Lutif Afif, also known as Isa, was the group leader. His team consisted of Yusuf Nizal, or Tony, the second in command, Mohammed Safadi, Jamal Al-Ghashi, and his uncle Adnan Al-Ghashi, Khalid Jawad, Ashmid Sheikh, and Afif Ahmed Hamid were also on the mission.
The Black September terrorists arrived at the Olympic Village at around 4 a.m. on September 5th wearing vibrant tracksuits. Their tactic to enter the gates was clever, communicating and exchanging jokes with American athletes and jumping over the fence to act like regular contestants. No one suspected a thing, not even the security guards. The only thing that the guards were equipped with were walkie-talkies to call for help. Carrying their duffel bags that contained dangerous and powerful guns, the terrorists entered the building Connolly Strasse 31. They silently broke into apartments 1 and 3. In apartment 1, they found coaches Amitzer Shapira, Kahat Shor, and Moshe Weinberg. In apartment 3, Mark Slavin and Eliezer Halfin were first to be caught. The noise awoke Gad Saberi, and he was caught when he attempted to check on his teammates. Shortly after, David Berger and Zeev Friedman were taken. When the guards realized that something was up, they called the police chief of Munich, Manfred Schreiber. In exchange for the Israeli hostages, Black September requested for 234 Palestinians in Israeli jails to be released, along with terrorists Andreas Bader and Ulrich Meinhof from Germany's jails. There was no way that Germany would willingly hand over these criminals to the Palestinians, so the terrorists and Germany had decided to meet up to negotiate. Schreiber decided to offer them money, but Issa's response was not what he hoped for. "This is not about money," Issa yelled at Schreiber. "Talk of money is demeaning." Because that attempt failed, he convinced Issa to give them more time, which worked. Later, Schreiber thought of a new plan. He would let a woman negotiate with the terrorists instead to try to intimidate them. Annalisa Grace was brave enough to volunteer for this. "What kind of rubbish is this?" Grace immediately questioned the terrorists. In Issa's French accent, he said that all of this had nothing to do with her or Germany and restated his requests. Grace told him that this would be impossible to fulfill. Issa did not want to reason. He simply stated that they release the prisoners or the hostages will die. The plan was to board a bus that will take them to the secret airbase Fürstenfeldbruck. Then they would board a plane together to Egypt. At 10:30 p.m., Germany planned on sniping all of the Black September guerrillas, but that did not happen, partly because they miscounted the number of terrorists. The fight finally began between the horrible snipers and skilled terrorists. Afraid to lose his team, Issa ordered for the Israelis to be killed. The guerrillas used weapons like grenades to burn the helicopters the hostages were in. At the end of this tragic battle, all 9 Israeli hostages, some German police and snipers, as well as 5 of the terrorists died, including Issa.
The Olympics were delayed after the attack. The International Olympic Committee suspended the Games for September 5th, and they held a memorial for the athletes the next day. Some athletes blamed the German authorities for not providing enough security for their guests, as well as how they dealt with the terrorists. Of course, people also blamed the Palestinians, since the tragic incident would not have happened in the first place if Black September did not plan the strike. The remaining 3 terrorists who survived the tragedy at Fürstenfeldbruck were captured, but they were able to be released shortly after for the exchange of the passengers and crew from the hijacked Lufthansa flight. This highly upset the Israelis, provoking them to create a secret mission with the code name Operation Wrath of God. Agents from the operation aimed for the terrorists that got released, killing 2 out of the 3. The final terrorist, Jamal al-Ghashi, was said to still be hidden. Abu Dawad was another of the group's targets. Dawad confessed in being involved with the attack. He was eventually tracked down and got shot 13 times in 1981, but that did not kill him. He died around 30 years later with no regrets of preparing the terrible Munich massacre attack. Shortly after the massacre, Israel and Egypt signed the Treaty of 1979. Egypt had concluded to do this because they finally realized Israel's rights to exist. Due to this, Israel had to return the Sinai Peninsula taken during the Six-Day War, and as a result, Egypt was at peace with Israel. Other Arab countries eventually also made peace with Israel, but not through peace treaties. The only conflict remaining is between Israel and Palestine, which is yet to be resolved. Unfortunately, the 1972 Olympics was not the last terrorist attack. At the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games, a bomb exploded in Centennial Olympic Park, killing 1 and injuring about 100 people. Other tragedies like the 9/11 attacks also occurred. Fast forwarding to about 2002, 30 years after the tragedy took place, family and former teammates of the Israeli athletes met up to mourn them in Munich. Germany showed great security improvement by showering the Munich Olympic Village with well-trained and armed bodyguards, a few airplanes with snipers in them to prevent terrorists from invading, and many other changes.
"Free all those prisoners or all the hostages will die," said Issa on September 5th, 1972, the day when the Munich Olympics suffered a terrorist attack that killed 11 innocent Israeli athletes and coaches, primarily because of the tension between Palestine and Israel. This tragedy, now known as the Munich Massacre, has taught the world about the importance of how Now, security is a major part of safety and can affect you when you least expect it. Many countries have shown a triumphant solution to this, which proves that we can learn from our mistakes to make the future a better place.